The coaching carousel is all Big Ten generated pretty much at this point, folks. Much going on in the conference just here in the last 24 hours. The offseason has been a whirlwind. Welcome into the Big Ten Live Show. Coming your way for another Friday night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time edition. We got Tim Prangley right next to me, repping USC, and now repping the Big Ten. Don't forget that. USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon. And with Chip Kelly's announcement today, we usher in the UCLA aspect of Big Ten football talk in the offseason. Appreciate you all being here. Comments and questions are welcome. And of course, we're going to take your calls at 888-997-4539. You see the number on the ticker down below. We'll be here for the next 2 hours. So before we bring in our first guest, Tim, you've got the USC angle on this. Chip Kelly, not the best of tenures at UCLA, but he did have his best 3 seasons to finish off his tenure with the Bruins. And now they are in the unenviable position of looking for a head coach to lead their football program after having lost their future star quarterback, you would think, Dante Moore, losing their defensive coordinator to their crosstown rival. Not been a great offseason. They lose Chip Kelly now. They got to find a coach in mid-February, about 3 weeks before spring practice starts, and they're headed to the Big Ten.
Yeah, well, they're going to have – there's some choices out there. Again, one guy that they keep talking about on the message boards and Twitter is coming back after Danton Lynn, who obviously was the mastermind behind their defense last year. For a lot of reasons, it would work for them. They'd hang on to a lot of the personnel, give some continuity to the program. But I honestly think the one thing, I'll shut it down at the beginning. I was responding with it. He was a position coach in the NFL. He gets a shot last year, his first year as a DC, as a coordinator at UCLA. And a couple of things there. One, Chip's leaving UCLA for a number of reasons, but one of those reasons is it's not the easiest place to coach football. You're always in the shadow of basketball. And obviously, Lynn's going to know all about that, just starting right there. Also, Lynn, I'm at USC. I make no mistake. I know his eyes are on the NFL. And what's going to get him faster to the NFL? If he's able to turn around the defense at USC with what USC's trying to put together, or try to rebuild whatever's left of what's going on over there at UCLA. That's going to be a multi-year rebuild. And I think he's not at USC because he loves USC. He's there as a stepping stone to get to the NFL. I know that. Pretty much everybody knows that. And going to UCLA at this point as a head coach, you might get a pay raise, but if his ultimate goal is to get to the NFL, it's going to set him back.
Folks, we will talk more UCLA, and we will talk more Chip Kelly to Ohio State as the offensive coordinator. But check in on the previous live stream. So we went live this afternoon as soon as the news broke, and we brought in Tony Siracusa from Last Word on College Football. And if you know Tony in our conversations in the past, he knows Chip Kelly. I mean, he knows Chip Kelly. He's covered UCLA football for years. He's a UCLA alum. He knows the program inside and out, tons of connections. So we really broke it down. Not that we won't talk it more here, but again, check out the previous live stream with Tony Siracusa talking UCLA and Chip Kelly to Ohio State. We are actually going to divert to a certain extent because I invited this guy on here in the last few days, and Bob Asmussen is joining us from the Champaign News-Gazette to talk some Illinois football. Bob, how you doing tonight?
I'm great. How about you guys?
We are doing just fine. Appreciate you being here.
Of course.
And we just wanted to get an update on the Illini. So we've got this Big Ten show that we do each and every Friday night, and like to check in with everyone across the 18 teams in the Big Ten. So I guess we'll start big picture with you, Bob, in regards to this is one of those programs that I'm guessing portion of the fan base could be excited about playing new competition, but much of the fan base could be a bit apprehensive about being able to compete in this league. And what are your thoughts about where Illinois stands in trying to find some relevance in the new Big Ten?
I think the concern from fans really is the disruption in the rivalries in the conference. So Illinois, for instance, plays Iowa. You used to play Iowa every year. they're not going to play. They're going to play Iowa twice in the next 5 years. I think that's a problem for people here. But I think when Oregon comes on the schedule this year, or Washington or USC, I think that will be a big deal to them. I think they haven't quite grasped that part of it. But I think generally they're upset about the fact they're not going to get to play Minnesota or Nebraska or Indiana as often as they have in the past, and that's understandable.
Yeah, Bob, when I saw that the permanent opponents that were set up in the new Big Ten, I checked them all off. Yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. And I've been watching Big Ten football for, I hate to admit it, almost 50 years. And
Me too.
the one that I came across, I got to say, Bob, that I was like, Illinois and Purdue. Why is it necessary that Illinois and Purdue, although they may be closer in proximity than almost any two schools in the conference, but that was the only connection I could find.
Well, yes, that's first, because I think other than Michigan State, I think is the closest. Well, now USC and UCLA, the closest rivalry in terms of distance. 90 miles. It's a quick trip over there and back. I love going there, honestly. I'm glad they're playing every year. But I think this long term, they're old original Big Ten schools. So I think there's some back and forth in terms of coaches and players and guys playing both teams, blah, blah, blah. Current head coach of Purdue, obviously, was at Illinois before he went there. So Ryan Walters is there. I think that's important. I just think their proximity is a big deal. Plus, they have a great basketball rivalry that goes back forever. I think it was critical in football that they play them a lot. I think them and Northwestern, to me, were logical.
Got Bob Asmussen on the line from the Champaign News-Gazette covering Illinois football. Brett Bielema obviously had a nice initial run, improved considerably that first season, posted an 8-win season the second year that really should have been better than that. I thought that was the best team in the Western Division in 2022. Of course, they took Michigan down to the wire on the road, the second to last game of the season. Now a bit of a drop back. They don't get it done against Northwestern the final weekend and miss out on postseason play.
Right.
What are your thoughts about where Brett Bielema stands with this team, considering the recruiting, just looking at the stars and the rankings, maybe doesn't seem too competitive in this conference?
He walked into a mess. Let's be clear about that. He walked into a Lovie Smith for 5 years was not good. Didn't recruit the state, didn't recruit anywhere. Brought some great players almost by accident. Devin Witherspoon, Johnny Newton came here because of Lovie. So there were some good things. But I don't think he had this thing. They were going backwards. They had to make a change. I think they hired the guy they thought was a program guy, could build. The idea, the goal here should be and is to be a team that's in the bowl, regardless of talent level, every year. And sometimes win 8, sometimes win 10. That's the kind of the goal here. I don't think they see themselves ever as permanent Big Ten champs. That's not going to happen. But I think they like to be more competitive yearly. I think they saw Bielema as the best answer to that. So I think first year really good, 5-7, could have been really 7-5, 8-4. Next year 8-5. You're right, could have won 10 games easily. And then last year 5-7, step back again, could have won 7-8 games, didn't do that. And I think the issue there is just get over the hump, get there, get to a bowl every year for 5 years in a row to have the people in the palm of their hands. Right now, fan base is not totally bought in. If you check the attendance numbers the last couple of years, you'll see that. Even with a big team coming in here, Penn State or Iowa, somebody, they don't fill the place. So that's a problem. But I think they have a better chance now than they did with Lovie here, honestly.
Hey, Bob, of course, Luke Altmaier comes in from Ole Miss,
Right.
had a decent season last year,
Yep.
pulled the game out against Toledo with a 4th down play downfield. They get the last second field goal. I thought one of the most exciting finishes was, unfortunately for Luke Altmaier, when he got tossed to the turf on a 3rd down and long and then set up the 4th down play with the backup quarterback coming in.
Right.
That threw the 3 laser shots for 75 yards in the final 45 seconds to beat Minnesota. But Luke Altmaier is obviously the future. And is his development been what you would have expected?
I think so. Obviously, the injury there, John Paddock came in and was awesome. he had 513 yards the next game. So it's kind of hard to take him out at that point. But local guy with a local connection. His grandpa was an All-American here, so it's kind of logical to play him. But I think Luke Altmer took it well. He sat on the bench, didn't complain, did all his work, was ready to go if needed, and he's ready to go this year. He's got 2 more years. He's got this year, and then 25 if he wants. That's a big deal. So I think he's good. He's got a lot of good qualities they need. Their issue this year is going to be keeping everybody healthy because they're line on offensive line, running back, receiver. The line between being in good shape and being unhealthy is pretty thin. So, but Altmaier is a key, definitely.
Bob, we appreciate you stopping by. This is Bob Asmussen from the Champaign News-Gazette. Only connection I can make off the top of my head, Bob, this is Tim, our USC guys. Of course, Juice Williams and company didn't have such a good day New Year's Day on 2008.
I actually picked Illinois to win that game. What an idiot I am. So they were. You were
optimistic.
That team had how many NFL players was on that USC team? It was great, but yeah, it was ugly.
Yeah, Tim could fill you in on how many USC players from that team went to the NFL. That team was ridiculous.
Yeah, it's great. The Illinois also played them. You might remember this in the early 90s over here, and it got smoked. But Illinois beat them in 8-9, comeback game 14-13. Were you even born yet in 89?
Oh, you're talking about me? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was born. That's for sure. I was more than born at that point. I vaguely remember those games, and I take pride in remembering all these games from yesteryear. So you're saying Illinois won at the Coliseum and correct. USC won the return trip. 89 and 90, that would have been against Jeff George, of course.
89, the return trip was a couple years later. 89 was supposed to be, this is awesome, was supposed to be in Moscow. I don't think they play that game now. It was going to be the Glasnost Bowl. It got canceled the last minute. So USC said, we'll host a game. And Illinois won 14-13. Jeff George, you guys must know, played first pick of the draft one year. Threw two late touchdowns to win the game, 14-13. One of the biggest ones for Illinois really in the history. So great win by them. But yes, that was a brief history with the USC, not very long.
And you say that USC came back to Champaign a couple years later?
In 94 or 5, smoked them. Thinks they scored 50. I think they just scored another touchdown while we're sitting there. They scored every which they had third string guys, fourth string guys scored touchdowns. It was unreal. They could have scored 100.
So that would have been Jason Verduzco at quarterback.
It was when Illinois had a dark period where they between Kirk Kidner and Jason Verduzco, Jeff George, they had a little lull there. A couple years, bad years that were really well set up. So they lost pretty bad here.
All right, Bob. Well, we appreciate you being here. Tim, anything for Bob before we let him go? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, just going to bring up the fact that we haven't played the Illini very much. You know, like you just said, like 3 times probably in the last 35 years or so. So it's one of the things I want to do. Like my whole family's from the Midwest. I've been watching the Big Ten since I was a little kid. Okay. So I'm really excited to see a number of these teams and get out the road every 4 years or so. So yeah. it'll be great.
When you come to Champaign, let me know. I'll take you out to dinner.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I'll absolutely take you up on that.
We're in. I've been there 35 years. It's a blur. So I get a pretty good idea of this place. It's a great place. Not quite LA. A little different than LA, but it's a nice place.
Not many places like this crazy house I live in. Yeah, you're right.
All right, Bob. Appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Guys, thanks for the invite. Really appreciate it. Whenever you want me on, I'll be on.
Absolutely. Thanks for the breakdown.
Take care. Bye-bye.
This is what this show is all about, folks. Yes, we're not just going to talk Ohio State, USC, Michigan, Penn State every week. We're going to take a look at the Big Ten top to bottom. There's our take from Illinois and Bob from the Champaign News-Gazette there. But that USC team that beat Illinois, I don't know what the score could have been. I know it was 49-17, but maybe it could have been 70-17.
Yeah, that was one of the better. That 2007 team was one of the better Pete Carroll teams and the 2008 team that we'll never know. It's too bad they didn't have playoffs back then because both of those teams could have played with anybody in the country. That would have been really fun to watch.
Well, we've sized it up, and I'm sure you have painfully sized it up more than I have, but we've talked about how even going all the way back to 2002, Pete Carroll's second season, the team that beat Iowa in the Orange Bowl, they were in the top 4 in the country going into that game. So they would have been a playoff selection. And then through the rest of the 2000s, through 08, USC would have been right there in the top 4.
Yeah. Shame that Pete was here a little too early because if he had, and the thing about Pete Carroll I really liked and about those years was that Pete got teams ready for bowl games, or so we'd say postseason play, better than any SC coach. I mean, not even close. Just the way and most coaches out there. When you showed up to play USC in the postseason, Pete came ready, and that's the one thing I wish we could have seen him do at USC.
I had some kind of back and forth. I don't know if it was on this show or it might have been on our USC show, probably on Monday night. I was explaining to our audience both today and yesterday when I was asked that if anyone pays attention to my approach on these shows, for the most part, now if somebody calls in and I think everything that they have to say is dead on the money and they're very unbiased, then hey, great call. Or if, we get our completely delusional, ridiculous people that don't have a clue. But most are just really ardent, passionate fans that have their argument lined up, and they've got some really good points, but it is on one side of the spectrum. And my job is to kind of play devil's advocate, pull them back to center. And that's not necessarily everything I believe, but I'm giving them facts and I'm going in the other direction. So there was some Big Ten bashing, I believe, by somebody on the USC side in
Was it me?
Well, it's you sometimes. Yes, absolutely. But it was somebody in the chat. And I just reminded them that while they said, well, USC always bashes the Big Ten. So, well, yeah, Pete Carroll's USC teams bashed the Big Ten. Well, they go 5-0 in postseason play. They blasted Penn State. They blasted Michigan twice. They beat Iowa in the Orange Bowl. So that's 4. And then the Illinois Rose Bowl. So 5-0 in Rose Bowl games. And then they blasted Ohio State. Well, they blasted them once, and then they snuck by in the last 30 seconds in the other game in Columbus. So that's 7-0 just off the top of my head against the Big Ten, and playing generally the best of the Big Ten.
Well, I mean, I think it's historically too, Marcus. I mean, you don't win 25 Rose Bowls if you're not
winning,
if you're not beating on a consistent basis. But no, I mean, he just went all the way back to 89. I'm not that young. I remember that. I mean, there was also a guy from Michigan State named, so we played Jeff George as a quarterback for the Illini, and then you got this receiver named Andre Rison for Michigan State. So it's not like the Big Ten didn't get their revenge from time to time, but it just seemed in my lifetime that more often than not, USC's come on the right side of the ledger.
Now, what I was reminding that person in the chat was absolutely, that's not even debatable. And those were typically, now a few times Ohio State should have been playing USC because they should have been playing in a playoff against each other, but Ohio State was off in the BCS championship game playing, and therefore USC was playing the second, or in Illinois' case, more like the third best team in the Rose Bowl. But I'm not saying it would have mattered, but it would have been a better game. But my counter was obviously Clay Helton made up for that to a certain extent by losing to Iowa and Ohio State and Wisconsin.
Yeah, we gave a lot back during. You guys should be big fans, just like UCLA and Notre Dame. They're big fans of that guy, Clay Helton. He was very generous with handing out the wins to many teams. So, yeah.
We've got the phones open, folks. 888-997-4539. Give us a call. Let's talk college football. Of course, the Big Ten, huge day. Bill O'Brien moves on to Boston College. So I was trying to estimate, Tim, not a bad deal. If you're Bill O'Brien, you're in Columbus. You don't even unpack your suitcase. You're there for 3 weeks. And if you do the math, you pick up a cool like $100,000 for 3 weeks of work. I guess that's how they do it.
Yeah, that's kind of money I'll never see. I'll never know, but
If he's
I'm
making
happy
like
for him.
$1.5 million plus a year, $1.5 million to $2 million, then it's like $100,000 for 3 weeks. And yeah, then you move on. But of course, yeah, Chip Kelly from UCLA to Ohio State as offensive coordinator. And Chip Kelly finally finds a landing spot. He's been peddling himself all over the NFL trying to land an OC gig. And that, I don't know that could have worked out any better for Ohio State, because I do think that I'm not going to argue that Bill O'Brien is some offensive guru beyond anybody else. I don't think it was about that as much as it was getting an adult in the building who really just has a ton of experience, knows how to run a program. Not that Ryan Day's not running the program, but can just take over the offense, let Ryan Day be a head coach, run Ryan Day's offense, provide some feedback, some challenges to that, pushback, because he's obviously an accomplished offensive guy. And I think in switching that out for Chip Kelly, that they get the same thing. They get somebody with a wealth of experience. And of course, he and Ryan Day have worked together forever. And now it's a flip-flop, since Ryan Day always worked for Chip Kelly, played for Chip Kelly, and then coached for Chip Kelly. And now it's the other way around, that I think it'll work well.
And one thing that people haven't really talked about a lot is you got to get Chip Kelly. So he played Riley twice, played him neck and neck, really, going into, and that interception that sealed the game for the Trojans when it looked like DTR was just going to take it down. It looked like that was going to happen, knowing that defense. And then man, the loss, this year as well. So he's shown that he can be at SC. He's familiar with Jed Fish. Yeah, Jed Fish played for, Jed Fish coached for him, as well as Jed Fish. He played against him in Arizona. So he brings some knowledge of the teams that are coming, and Oregon as well. So he brings that knowledge. I don't know. Here's the thing, though, about a couple of coaches that made these moves. I talked earlier about Danton Lynn. I don't think he's going to stay at USC. He's got his eye in the NFL. But so is Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly, he tried to get every offensive coordinator job out there. This is a step. He probably made a decision. So how am I get to the NFL faster? Through UCLA, or going straight to, or going and being an offensive coordinator with all these toys, with Judkins, with Henderson, and Howard. I'm gonna shine here, and then I'll move on to the NFL. Looks like we got a call, Mark. No, we had a call. Sorry, they hung up.
Yeah, give us a call, everyone. 888-997-4539. It's on the ticker below.
Here we go. Hey, caller, you're on with Mark Rogers. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Dusty from Dublin, Ohio, just outside of Columbus.
Dusty,
I'm a Michigan fan and doing pretty well. I just wanted to talk about this Michigan football team this year and an underrated aspect. So we all know about the national championships, and I'm not one, and I think it's very dangerous to attribute things to God that are not from God. But this Michigan team had 70 players baptized this year. A lot of players say God, God. This Michigan team said Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Where is it divine intervention? I don't know. But it gave them a platform, and Jim Harbaugh at the College Football Playoff Committee, to say, thank Jesus. So I just wanted to, get some thoughts on that. And also, just if anybody didn't hear that word, let them hear it now. Thanks.
Well, thank you for the call. I appreciate that. I don't think our caller's still there, correct?
Yeah, he's still there.
Okay. So, Dusty,
now he's gone. Sorry.
So my general thought about when we talk about spiritual influence on what we accomplish here on earth, do I think God is a college football fan? No, I don't think he cares from that standpoint. He cares about people. And I'll just say that I would never be one that would say that I've got the perfect answer on theology in regards to who God helps win or not win on a football field. I generally think he stays out of it, and he's concerned about people and their well-being. and whether they're speaking the truth and doing loving things and all of that. And if out of all that success and being blessed, they are able to turn that into football success, then so be it. But I may be wrong. All right, folks.
Mark, we got another caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi there. This is Dr. C from Houston.
Dr. C.
Yes. Hey, yeah, I've been enjoying the show. I had a couple of questions in regard to Chip Kelly, USC, and in regards to recruiting. I was wondering, why did Chip Kelly struggle so much recruiting at UCLA when he did a very good job at Oregon?
Because even back when Chip was there, Oregon had a better NIL program than everybody else. Hey, look, there's stories.
Is that it?
There are stories that I could go into that I'm not really going to go into. No, yeah, that's why I said D'Anton Lynn was there, right? The USC coordinator who was the UCLA defensive coordinator. He saw how hard it was to recruit because recruiting is different now. You would think UCLA, with a great world-class education, it's in Westwood, not far from, very closer to the beach than USC, that they should have no problem, and they have. Jim Mora was recruiting pretty well. You go back to Bob Toledo. Bob Toledo was really recruiting very well, so you can do it. I mean, it's in Southern California, and it's obviously a world-class school. But I don't think you're in the shadow of basketball, and it just looked like. And then you marry that with Chip Kelly, who's not really a recruiter. Again, when you're in a situation where Nike and the facilities. Remember back then, it was not about NIL; it was about the facilities. And Nike was sponsoring and putting state-of-the-art facilities there at Oregon, where most of the Pac-12 programs are well behind. And he sold winning. I mean, if you remember when Chip Kelly got there with the Blur, that offense, who wouldn't want to play in that offense, right? So that also helped them. Mm-hmm. My jokes aside.
Hey, Dr. C, what do you think Chip Kelly's recruiting rankings were at Oregon?
Man, I'd have to look. If I had to guess, I would say he probably was getting top 15 classes.
And so the only reason I went to this is because I remember posting a video at the time when Jim Mora took over at UCLA. Because when Chip Kelly took over at UCLA, obviously, and we're taking over Jim Mora's recruiting classes, that Jim Mora left Chip Kelly with almost identically the same ranked roster in recruiting rankings as what Chip Kelly recruited at Oregon. Chip Kelly, the year that they went to the Rose Bowl in 2009, which would have been his first big year, they had the 30th rated recruiting class. So that was a foundation for teams that were vying for national championships. And then his other recruiting classes were ranking between 11 and 19 in the country. Now, he hasn't done that well at UCLA, but it's not been that decidedly worse. I think Chip Kelly's success was largely upon running an offense and running a system that was well ahead of its time.
And that offense went for, different types of offensive linemen. Quick, fast, the smaller, fast, just to run because they ran so fast. If you had 320-pound linemen, they just wouldn't probably be able to keep up with that blur. But there were some issues. Oregon's not exactly known, even when Bellotti was there, not known for killing it. But there were, I was talking about DeAnthony Thomas, some of these guys that they had come through there that were just supposedly locked going to USC and then headed up there to play in that offense. They weren't always the highest. When it comes to recruiting, also be careful because a lot of UCLA and USC's high recruiting classes in recent years have been filled up with skill position and minus your trench depth. So that was also the issue when Chip got there. Chip cleaned house when he got there. He just kind of, we're like, before you talk about turning a roster, he was running guys off left, right, and center. And we're like, she's like 30 guys just went off his roster, when he got there. Everyone was like, what is he doing? And he used that to say, well, I'm rebuilding the roster. But back then, remember, that was before the transfer portal and the 1 year and the exception on the transfer rule. So he had a little bit of hard time getting started, but he started to get on a roll like we did see, but they just could not recruit between Chip Kelly offering almost nobody. There were jokes about how few people he was actually putting offers out to, and the fact that he openly admits he just doesn't like to recruit, and he doesn't. The fact they won any games or won as many games as they did is because of what a good coach, Chip Kelly is.
And that's pretty much the best point and the most meaningful point in all of that, Dr. C, is the last one. Chip Kelly doesn't like to recruit.
Mark, do you have any concerns about him recruiting at Ohio State?
Nope.
I mean, I'm sure it'll take care of itself because of the name, but no?
Not really. I don't think they need him to recruit. Sure, they need him to do something as a recruiter, but they don't need him to recruit.
It seems like, and I may be wrong, but it seemed like even with the 49ers and going into UCLA, Chip Kelly seems to have an idea in his head of the type of player that he wants. And it's not necessarily the best player.
Sure.
I think I heard an interview where he was describing something like that. Do you think that's accurate or not at all?
Well, Tim hit on the thing that was, to me, the most recognizable about watching Oregon 10 years ago, 12 years ago, was when I flipped on an Oregon game, I knew I was watching Oregon. They didn't have to be wearing the most unique uniforms in the country. Just watching their style of offense and how light and quick and how much in space they would utilize these offensive linemen was incredible. And their complexity in the running game of what they would do with sets and with motion and with various ways to run the football in particular, you knew you were watching Oregon play. I got to say, watching UCLA, Chip Kelly's still a really good football coach, and I think he's going to be a great fit for Ohio State because he's going to streamline things. He's going to see things that Ryan Day doesn't see. He's going to bring in a fresh perspective, and you just know that play calling is going to be airtight and fine, and he's going to have all the talent he could ever want to utilize. But at UCLA, flipping on a UCLA game during Chip Kelly's run, I didn't really differentiate their offense from anybody else's offense. He lost that unique quality that he had because everybody took from him.
Well, and they legislated the rules, and guys were falling down, getting the faked injury stuff. There were ways the game caught up to him, but that doesn't mean that was a huge innovation that set him way ahead. He's still, as far as game planning, even when the Bruins had bad teams under Chip Kelly, I always held my breath because he would always come with a really good game plan. And some of the defenses that we've had, you really did have to hold your breath. But Chip Kelly, to me, is still going to be able to innovate. He's a brilliant guy. I don't think he'll be there very long. And the thing that scares me, and I'm glad I tweeted this out earlier, I'm glad we don't play you guys because you have, Judkins and Henderson and Howard, and he loves to run the ball. And those are three guys that can hurt you and pretty much almost take it to the house on almost any play. Howard's a big guy, but if he gets moving and he's going in one direction, he can house that thing. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, he's got lots of tools and fun things to play with. And I'm glad we don't play you guys this year.
Yeah. No,
and he's got
point.
5 quarterbacks to help Ryan Day develop.
I'll let you go with this because I know you got more callers. Is this an downgrade or an upgrade comparing to Bill O'Brien?
I don't think it's significant one way or the other. I do think that Bill O'Brien having more recent success, I was pretty pleased with that hire. I have no issue with Chip Kelly, and maybe his familiarity with Ryan Day and their working relationship will, I don't know if that's you would think it would be a benefit more so than a detriment. So on that standpoint, that could be a positive over what Bill O'Brien just being a guy that's been known to be a little bit difficult. And I don't mean in some kind of way that is detrimental to the team, but just I've always wondered about guys that have been head coaches, and he's been a head coach at Penn State and in the NFL, now having to play a subservient role to somebody else. Well, Chip Kelly's in that same position, but that's what he is. That's what he's wanting. That's what he's wanting at this stage in his life and his career.
Yeah. I mean, it surprised me. I guess the timing of everything.
The timing was perfect for Ryan
threw me
Day.
off. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, that's yeah. All right, well, I'll let you go. Hey, last thing. PJ Fleck, David Shaw are names for UCLA. Any favorites for that out of those two?
Out of those two, man, those are two very different people. I know that a lot of the luster has been taken off of PJ Fleck, and a lot of people he tends to rub some people the wrong way. You either love PJ Fleck or you can't stand him. He does not many too many people are neutral on PJ Fleck. I've always liked PJ Fleck. I think that he's a tremendous coach. He has upgraded every situation he's been in. Now, David Shaw, I'm kind of surprised that David Shaw would be in the running just because he just walked away from a job, a year and a half ago because he was burnt out. But David Shaw is like the smartest guy in the room. Yeah. He's brilliant.
Definitely. But he'll have a better time recruiting UCLA than Stanford.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Oh, well, it's not even close because of all the restrictions you have. I mean, it's not just that they're at academic school getting in, but they don't, grad transfers, you have guys can't get in early. There's all kinds of barriers when you're the coach at Stanford.
And what about PJ Fleck going from Minnesota to UCLA? The world's going to be opened up to him. He's like up against the Canadian border trying to pull in players from wherever he can find them. The way things stand now, and he's pulling in top 30 or 35 classes, which at Minnesota is pretty good. They were pulling in more like top 55 to 60 classes before PJ Fleck, but it's a long way to Minneapolis for anybody that can play football. There are only so many players in Minnesota and North and South Dakota that can play big time college football, and there's usually like one per season. So he's got to go a long way to get players.
Yeah,
right, Dr. C. Appreciate you being here. All right, Dr. C. Have a good one.
Yeah, there's a bunch of other names being knocked around. And Tom Herman's another name that people are talking about from Florida Atlantic. He didn't work out at Texas, but that's one name that they're throwing around. You guys talked about, and then whose name's always going to come up? You got Campbell's name being thrown in there as well. So, I mean, it's not like there's no coaching, like good coaches available for UCLA, but there's not going to get that. They're not going to have that home run hire. And it's going to be a lot of the retread. I shouldn't use that word, but just the names you hear all the time when these coaches come available, they're like that tier 2, tier 3 coach, or that, maybe that young coach that's just looking for the right fit, right opportunity coming up. They have your guy, Brian Hartline, as one of the guys possibly in line for take a shot on it. West Coast, Hartline, there's receivers and there's quarterbacks in California. That's one thing. May not have that 320 quick twitch nose tackle, but there are certainly a lot of quarterbacks and wide receivers here in Southern California.
We do appreciate you being here, the voice of college football. Keep in mind that the Amazon link's in the description section of every video, including this one. So please use the Amazon link. We know that at least half of you are on Amazon probably every month, and you might as well use our link Same shopping experience. Doesn't cost you a penny. This is the one way you can contribute to the Voice of College Football financially without spending a penny. Use the Amazon link. It's completely transparent to you. Same shopping experience. You're not going to be able to tell that you're using our link, and it helps build the channel. And also keep in mind, we've got an SEC channel and Big 12 channels. Those links are in the description section as well. Check out our SEC and Big 12 content.
You guys that are waiting on hold, make sure we will get to you. You're going to be on hold for a few minutes as we talk to the caller, but we just lost the two people that were waiting for Dr. C. We have no phone line calls right now, so 888-997-4539. You'll be getting right on. Talk to Mark.
Yeah, I jotted down these names. I know we had a conversation again with Tony Siracusa, and just interrupt me, Tim, if somebody jumps on the line, but I think this is way out of left field, but I get the connection. Pete Carroll, people have already thrown that out. Tommy Reese has taken the job as the Cleveland Browns tight end coach. Deshaun Foster, of course, was a great UCLA all-time great running back there, who's with the Las Vegas Raiders. I had to cycle that through. Oakland, Los Angeles, Las Vegas. Yes, Raiders. UCLA defensive coordinator Akaika Malo, PJ Fleck, Tony White, defensive coordinator at Nebraska. They had a really good defense this past year.
Yeah, I think the only way Pete Carroll ever coaches again is so he could get so he could be eligible for the College Football Hall of Fame. I don't think he cares that much about that. He's got bigger Hall of Fames he's chasing. So
yeah,
that's it. Caller, hi, thanks for calling in. You're on the phone with Mark Rogers. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
I can barely hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah. What are your thoughts? What are you thinking?
Hi, yeah, this is Matt from Cookeville, Tennessee.
Hey, Matt, how you doing
tonight?
Good.
Yeah, so I'm a big Ohio State fan. Just really excited for the upcoming season. Big Big Ten fan. So I think it's a great time to be a Big Ten fan right now with everything that's going on with the conference expanding and all the new hires, and I'm really looking forward to it. I just want to get your opinion. So I think the Chip Kelly hires a good pickup, at least for a year, right? And then I think maybe what do you think about him mentoring Brian Hartline to kind of take over next year after a season?
Well, yeah, that's another angle to this. So that's a good pickup by you. If Brian Hartline is still around, as Tim mentioned, there's talk that he could be a candidate for the UCLA head coaching position, although that could be a reach. Although if UCLA is looking to the future and don't want to let a future superstar get away, they might make that reach, especially if they can surround him with really strong, experienced offensive and defensive coordinators that have experience that can help him. But if Hartline's still around, yeah, that is a tremendous angle to all of this, because I think Ohio State's got a guy in Brian Hartline that they don't feel comfortable giving him the reins of the offense. That's obvious, and for good reason. He's never run an offense. He's never called plays on game day, but they don't want to lose him. So this could be an excellent opportunity to take one of the best offensive minds in the game and have him mentor and tutor Brian Hartline and prepare him possibly to be, and if things don't work out, I know Ohio State fans, some are thinking take over for Ryan Day, but most likely work with Ryan Day as the OC when Chip moves on.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of my thought on all this. And just last year, I know Marcus Freeman was trying to get Brian Hartline to go to Notre Dame. I know Ohio State kind of stepped up in order to keep him. So I think they're pretty keen on keeping him, and I think that kind of an angle I don't think anybody's talking about. I think another reason why Ryan Day wants to kind of go back to giving the reins to somebody else is not only to help run the offense, take some pressure off him, but I think also to help mentor Brian Hartline I do think Brian Hartline is eventually going to be the full-time play caller.
Yeah, it's kind of a great double mentor situation where Ryan Day's running the program and he can bring Hartline along in certain aspects of the program and how it's run at Ohio State. And then you got Chip Kelly, who's run just as big of programs, but more so is going to be that direction from a play calling standpoint. And yeah, that is high level education right there when you talk about those two as mentors.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then just looking forward, I'm just a lot of people I know are complaining about how kind of college football is kind of the direction it's heading, but I'm excited. I think I like kind of the direction it's going. I know NIL is kind of crazy right now, but I like the direction college football's heading, and I like the direction the Big Ten's heading. I think it's exciting. I would like to see the SEC and Big Ten kind of get that 1-2 league and almost mimic the NFL a little bit. And I would like to eventually see, hopefully, like a SEC Big Ten challenge in the regular season, kind of like what you have in college basketball with the Big Ten and the ACC.
Yes. So I got to say, Matt, this is a refreshing call from this standpoint, because most of us and most of the callers and the viewers we have here are dreading the future, don't like where the game is headed. And I'm generally in that boat as well. However, if all you're focused on, if you can push all that aside and you're just focused on the quality of the football and the matchups and the structure of where the sport could be headed from just a cream of the crop standpoint, then you're exactly where you are, where we're getting better games automatically because we've taken 4 of the best schools out of the Pac-12. They're in the Big Ten. The very 2 best in the Big 12, they're in the SEC. We have improved the stock of those 2 leagues so much, and they were already the 2 best. And the level of matchups that we're getting now versus what we've had in the past in conference has just been completely ratcheted up. And then on top of that, of course, a 12-team playoff. So we're going to have more quality postseason games. Sure, we're going to have a few stinkers in there, but quality matchups in the postseason. So if you're focused on just what's going on the field, then I totally get your vantage point on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that again, NIL. I think it's kind of a mess right now, but I think it'll get sorted out eventually. I mean, you're not going to have no rules forever, and I think eventually you're going to see some things change with the structure of college football, and I think there probably will be a commissioner eventually, and it's going to kind of almost have almost a semi NFL type feel to it, I think. But I mean, if you look at the ratings, TV ratings, I know you do some breakdowns on those. I mean, TV ratings are at an all-time high for college football right now, and I think it's college football is the second most popular sport in America, and I don't think that's going to change. If anything, I think these changes are going to allow the sport to just explode the next couple of years even more, especially with the model the Big Ten's going to, across multiple, platforms of CBS, NBC, and Fox, and in multiple time slots. I think that was a brilliant move, and I think it's really going to cause the sport to explode here.
It was a brilliant move, and we talked about that on here, why it was a brilliant move. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what you're pointing to with the advisory committee, maybe I'm even losing, it's only been a few days, the term of the joint agreement between the SEC and the Big Ten. I think it's pretty obvious that they don't have all the answers yet, nor do they, but they have obviously had preliminary talks to know, okay, we're both in the same place in knowing that, number one, we want to control this sport. Number two, we don't like that it's out of control. And number three, we've discussed it long enough to know we have a general consensus on where we want to take this and how we want to control it and rein it in. So let's join forces and we will either take over the sport or we will be so incredibly influential on a skeleton NCAA that we'll pretty much, tell them what to do and push it in whatever direction we want, and we'll make this work, because otherwise the sports in some aspects imploding, but we can take care of those. But in all the other aspects that you're talking about in regards to the explosion of the sport and the popularity and the interest and now the frequency of big time matchups, though there are a lot of smart people in those two conferences to get together and to come to, it's not going to be perfect, but to come to some type of consensus on this is what we are going to be able to do for the student athlete while still trying to maintain some guardrails that is going to make this palatable for the fan at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of the last thing I wanted to kind of bring up, as an Ohio State fan, I think the one thing that Ohio State and Michigan fans can agree on is how insufferable Notre Dame fans are with their independence. I do think that the way college football is trending here, especially with the Big Ten and the SEC, do you think that's going to kind of be the death knell for Notre Dame's independence if the Big Ten and the SEC kind of are able to kind of join forces? And because a lot of people don't realize the 12-team playoff, right? It's not locked in here going forward. So, I mean, who's to say that the Big Ten and SEC can't just say here in a year or two, hey, it's going to be all SEC Big Ten teams in the 12-team playoff? Do you think that is kind of going to be the end for Notre Dame and their independence if they block them out of the playoff?
Yes, I do. At one point here recently, we still had BYU. We still had some other schools hanging on to independence in the last 10 or 15 years. Now it's Notre Dame. And I know if you look up the standings, there's like 3 other schools, UConn and somebody else, but they don't matter. Yes, Notre Dame is the only independent in the country. And we have a 12-team playoff that the first tenet of the playoff is that conference champions get automatic bids in the first 4 seeds. And so for one school to be dangling out there doing their own thing is completely ridiculous. And I don't blame Notre Dame. For as long as they're able to get away with it, we all do whatever we can get away with. If I'm going to drive down the highway at 95 miles an hour and no cop's going to pull me over, then is it really my fault? Well, I should be more responsible than that. Yes. But I blame college football. And if there were already a governing body or a commissioner in place, this would have been taken care of a long time ago. But I think it eventually will. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Just wanted to say thanks. I enjoy your show. Have a good weekend.
Thanks for the call, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Sorry, I was multitasking and I forgot I was trying to add some Chip Kelly to tonight's show for the 6 o'clock show to bring in some more Trojans, possibly some Bruins. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, caller. Thank you for calling in. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Jackson from Meridianville, Alabama. How are you guys doing tonight?
This sounds familiar.
It's our guy, Jackson.
How's it going tonight on the 49th edition of the Big Ten Live Show?
Leave it to Jackson to know what edition this is. Yes, number 49 tonight. Excellent. Yes, this is in honor of the 49ers in the Super Bowl, I guess. We'll make that connection.
Nice. I'm excited about the 50th edition. That's going to be fun as well. Only 51 more, 100.
Yeah, we may have to do something special for number 50. What's going on with you tonight, Jackson?
Nothing much. Just been curious about what's going on with UCLA. And I know a lot of people are talking about PJ Fleck possibly leaving for Minnesota for UCLA. I got to be honest, that's a lateral move right there. I mean, I know LA is a big market, but UCLA is a disaster. I mean, they obviously could not read the room with Chip Kelly after the Cal loss, 36-7. And they obviously can't read the room with their AD, with Martin Germond, when the fans are telling them, hey, Chip Kelly's got to go. Hey, Martin Germond's got to go. I got a feeling this coaching search is going to end very badly for UCLA. I hope I'm wrong for their sake, but I doubt they're going to have good days like they did in the Donahue days or the Red Sanders days.
Well, if I could say this, I don't know. I hope I don't offend any Minnesota fans when I say this,
boy.
but I think the upside at UCLA, just from, let's just like you've talked about, Mark, just from just a recruiting standpoint. Now, what if he takes his row the boat, the underdogs, et cetera, but slightly upgrades them, but living in the shadow of the perceived shadow of, has always been USC. It's a USC town, whatever. He could play that angle all day long with Southern California athletes. So you get an upgrade there. And I don't know the situation at Minnesota with NIL. I don't know the situation there with their athletic department. But UCLA is going to be a full member to the Big Ten, unlike the half off Huskies and a discount Ducks. They're going to be a full member going in. So I think that there can be, if he could make the traction, and he would be the coach to do it, because I don't think that they're going to be able to get the kind of athletes Ohio State and Oregon and USC and Michigan and Penn State are going to be able to attract, Wisconsin, even in Nebraska. I don't think they're going to get the same quality player, but I do think that at UCLA there is a higher upside, Mark.
All right. I'm right there with Tim for the most part. Yes, these two programs, yeah, they're on the same tier right now. And if anything, maybe Minnesota's been a little bit better on the field than UCLA in recent years. It's close. But as Tim is alluding to get players to go to Minnesota, there are probably 3 to 4 players in every high school recruiting class in the state of Minnesota that are good enough to play in the Big Ten, to be recruited by Minnesota. They've got to go thousands of miles away to get most of their players. Sure, they get a couple from Wisconsin, Illinois, and the surrounding areas, but they got to go a long ways. Now, I was going to say before your phone call, Jackson, that if I'm a big-time coach, and I'm talking PJ Fleck, Matt Campbell, the upper tier of the coaches that are being thrown out there, the guys that have had success at lesser programs and been able to elevate those programs, and I'm going to UCLA, I got to have some guarantee. Like, I see the potential there. The potential there is ridiculous, but I've got to be convinced that you are going to support me to play big boy football here. I need some support. And from everything I understand from listening to all sorts of people that know UCLA football, including our guy, Tony Siracusa, this afternoon, been hearing this for years, that UCLA's athletic budget is in shambles. Now, I would be making the concession in the consideration, I should say, if interviewing for the head coaching job, to say, I understand our athletic budget is in shambles and I want our football program to help that, but we are going to utilize this TV money to be competing with everyone we're competing with. And then we'll take the overflow of that and progressively help the athletic budget, but we're not going to pour every cent into try to erase this deficit right away. I need this kind of support to compete with everybody else in the Big Ten. Now, I would say, Tim, that UCLA should get better players than a couple of the schools that you mentioned on the lower end there, Nebraska and Wisconsin. I think UCLA should be able to get better players.
I'm just looking at
by much.
With Fickle at Wisconsin, I think if they turn things around, I think that's going to be a hotter name, I would say. And as far as the program, Wisconsin is definitely is leaps and bounds ahead of what UCLA football is. So
Jackson, to your point, yeah, making that move to UCLA, that is a risk. PJ Fleck would be taking a huge risk, but the upside is greater than at Minnesota. At Minnesota, he knows he can go 7-5, 8-4 forever and go to bowl games every year. he would be taking a huge risk at UCLA. He may fall flat on his face, just like Chip Kelly did his first 3 or 4 years, or he could take advantage of California talent and all the things you can sell at UCLA, tons of football players in your backyard that you can possibly rein in, and maybe not get the elites most of the time, but get that second tier 4-star guy that's going to be far greater than what he's pulling in at Minnesota. And one of the other similarities between these two schools, these are two of the largest schools in the country. They're mammoth in terms of their enrollment and their alumni bases.
Yeah, I mean, the TV markets are going to be great going into 2024 and beyond, especially when you see a conference game of, say, Oregon, Wisconsin, or USC, Nebraska, or like a UCLA, Wisconsin matchup. Those will be tremendous. Those will be tremendous games that are on like CBS, NBC compared to like a Purdue Rutgers matchup. No offense to Purdue Rutgers.
And that's one of the big advantages that the Big Ten has over the other conferences as people continue to cut the cord. And of course, they're savvy enough to stream and get their football in other ways. But the simple way for the 60 and over crowd, let's say, and for those people that are more fringe fans and they're not going to go into all the intricacies of streaming, try to figure that out, but just flip on a game on Saturday afternoon and Saturday night. Well, the Big Ten has more over-the-air games by far than anybody else with those 3 networks. They're basically running an NFL contract on television. So all the games are accessible, almost all of them, across the Big Ten landscape every Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much have no complaints so far in trying to keep up with the NBC games on my iPad. I'm making sure I got one of the games on the TV, then I got another game on my phone, then there's that NBC game on my iPad.
Perfect.
There
All
we
right,
go.
Jackson. Well, it's great to hear from you. Anything else, man?
Oh, that's about all for right now. And Tim, congrats on being on the Trojans Wire team. I'm happy that you got on there, and congrats for getting past 1,000 followers, man.
Oh, thanks so much. Appreciate you, Jackson. You're a big part of that. You're always getting our stuff out, and I hope you're watching and reading. I know you will be, so appreciate you out there.
Well, I did my best to read everything. Before I go, I'd like to mention that if you're looking for a special gift for your sweetheart this Valentine's Day, check out the latest Voice of College Football merchandise at Top Quality Shirts /collection /Mark Rogers, where you can get some of the best gifts ever, especially for your sweetheart this Valentine's Day.
Nobody delivers a promo like our guy Jackson.
Oh, thank you, Mark. I do my best. Y'all stay safe, stay warm, and y'all have a good night. And I'll see y'all later.
Thank you, Jackson. Good to hear from you. And I will
hear from you guys as well, man.
I will be throwing up our merchandise as soon as I can find the. Don't you hate it when you've got your laptop or your device, whatever it is, perfectly the way you got it set up, where you can just type in the first couple letters of anything and it populates, and then you got it. Everything's been like that, and whatever got wiped out, the cookies got cleaned out, whatever it was, and now I can't find anything because it doesn't automatically populate anymore. Moose, thank you so much for that. We'll take it. I believe Moose has the link there. It's in the chat. I'm going to grab it. I want to throw it on the screen is what I was trying to do to show some merch off. 888-997-4539, the Big Ten Live Show. We're here every Friday. Bring a friend or two next week with you, or 50.
Mark, another caller. We got Joel from California. Joel, you're on with Mark Rogers.
Thank you. I want to first compliment Mark on his performance as a journalist. He has a lot of integrity. He's very hardworking. Also, either one of the two offensive coordinators, Kelly and O'Brien, are fine. That's not going to determine Ohio State's success this coming year. It's going to be the quarterback, how well the quarterback performs. Just a little bit better quarterback performance last year would have been the key in the determination of the outcome against Michigan and probably the rest of the games. I can't hear you though.
Well, Joel, first of all, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that so much. Thank you for the support. If I follow your question, it was a bit difficult to hear some of that, but you're asking about the quarterback development, correct?
Yeah, well, it's not a question. It's just pointing. My observation is that no matter who the OC is going to be, the quarterback performance on the field was decisive last year.
Yeah, the quarterback play, for as much as Kyle McCord took some undue criticism, it was not at the level that it needs to be to compete for a national championship. It was close. I think with the defense that they had and the skill position players, that if they would have had CJ Stroud last year, they probably win the national championship, but they didn't. Kyle McCord is a fine player and a top probably 30 quarterback in the country, but that is probably not going to get it done. So just a few key mistakes in key situations. And beyond the key mistakes, it was more about him not seeing things downfield that he failed to pull the trigger on. It was more than that, more than him making boneheaded mistakes. It was more about him not finding the players downfield with the opportunity for chunk plays. So to your point, my concern is if quarterback rooms were rated top to bottom and you played 4 or 5 guys, boy, Ohio State would have a huge advantage. Their quarterback room is probably the best in the country, but they're only playing one guy. And I don't know if it's Will Howard. He's good, but he's not. Now, with those Ohio State weapons and with another year under his belt, and with the minds of Ryan Day and Chip Kelly, maybe he becomes that. But he's not a great quarterback. He's not Caleb Williams. He's not even Bo Nix. He hasn't been that. Is he good? Does he? So he brings 2 things that Kyle McCord didn't last year. Number one, he should automatically be better just because he's got 2.5 years under his belt already. And Kyle McCord, again, I'm going to be an apologist to a certain extent. We got to understand he had 0 experience. And Will Howard's played in Big 12 championship games and played several times against teams like Texas and Oklahoma in a Sugar Bowl. And then, of course, he's got the component that he can run. Kyle McCord was generally a statue back there, and Will Howard can take off and run and threaten a defense like that. But I got to say, I've seen Will Howard play quite a bit, and I don't know if I'm being an uppity Ohio State guy here, but when he was playing for Kansas State, I thought, Will Howard's a good quarterback. He's really good for Kansas State. But once he transferred to Ohio State, and I caught some of these breakdowns, our buddy Tony Gerdeman from Buckeye Huddle, who does
I love Tony.
Yeah, does a great job. Funny guy, smart guy, does our Buckeye show with us every Wednesday. He's done cut-ups on Twitter and shown them. Man, I'm watching this and I'm thinking, man, Will Howard went whatever for whatever against Oklahoma State and threw 3 picks, and look at that throw and look at that. And I'm trying not to get too judgmental, but he's not Justin Fields, CJ Stroud, Dwayne Haskins, the 3 prior quarterbacks to Kyle McCord. Not yet, at least.
Do you think, Mark, I'm just going to throw it out there because I guess both of you guys probably know more about the program than I do, and half the chat. When you get Quinshon Judkins, right? When you have Trayvon Henderson, definitely, you guys have the best running back tandem in America. I'd like to hear if there's a better one out there. You also have Will Howard, and you have a guy like Chip Kelly. Maybe they won't be running the Ryan Day offense, because maybe they don't have the quarterback for it. Maybe they don't have the offensive line to pass block, but maybe they have the offensive line to run block. You might have this kind of this convergence of all these, just everything kind of coming together. We know your defense is going to be disgusting. You don't need to score a bunch of points. You're not going to win games 42 to 31. That's like this kind of games, right? It's going to be low. I think it's going to be some low scoring games with that defense. And now you have a powerful running attack with a coach. Everyone thinks about the blur and that ball. He's not a throw the ball all over the place. He's a run the ball kind of guy. And I think that this might be the perfect situation for the Buckeyes just to roll through the Big Ten.
Well, they were pretty conservative last year. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, I was going to slightly shift over to another topic that's close to my heart. I have an interesting background. I was a Michigan Daily sports editor back when Schembechler first came to Michigan in '69. And I have a long history as a labor organizer, as a labor attorney on both coasts. And I thought for a long time what would be the solution to college athletics and college student athletes. And it's so obvious. If the three major players associations from NFL, NBA, and MLB formed a association, a subsidiary, like an auxiliary, and just swept in and organized all the college players in probably less than a year, they would have immense power with combining the experience of the professional players association and the talent of the colleges. They have no opposite interests. They have consistent interests. Most every player in the pros came from college, understands that. So it's the simplest solution which could happen quickly with no cost. Once you have a very, very powerful entity looking out for the interests of the athletes, everything's going to get ironed out. They'll get enough money. They understand competitive balancing, because the pro unions support competitive balance, and that's what is needed in college. And not let who spends the most money always and has the most wealthy alumni base dictating the future of college football. Anyway, that's my point of view, and I hope we can have a talk sometime in more detail.
Well, it's an interesting topic, and one that we have visited before and will continue to revisit, because that's where we are and that's where it's headed, and so much has to be worked out, and it's going to be a fairly painful transition. It's not going to be smooth, but it needs to head in some reasonable direction, because things are changing and they're going to change. There's no going back. So you bring up an interesting point.
Thanks.
Thank you, Joel. Appreciate the call, sir.
Yeah, you guys take it easy.
And that might be last call. I mean, we don't do last call for calls. We're at 5:30 right now.
Yes. And here is what Jackson, of course, was alluding to. Some of this stuff I haven't even seen, but grab the link in the chat. It's topqualityshirts.com / Mark Rogers. We'll get you there. And again, there should be a link there in the chat. And I believe there should be a link in the description section of the video. I think we've got that right on the channel. So check it out. And yes, Valentine's Day is coming, although that means nothing to me the last couple of years. But Tim, you may want to jump in here. All right. Tim and Matt are coming up at the top of the hour over on the USC channel with our USC call-in show. And so we would love for all of you just to move right on over to the USC channel and catch up with some Trojans talk. Of course, you guys can talk just college football in the chat if you'd like, but We've got our back-to-back Big Ten USC Friday night all here for you. We're here for you every Friday night with the big doubleheader.
We have a celebrity caller calling in right now in a
Ooh.
second here. But before we do that, I just want to do my own plug. Yeah. So tonight, you guys at 6:00 on USC channel, come on over, haters, fans, indifferent, come over. We're gonna talk about not just USC, but we are talking Big Ten. We're gonna talk about Wink Martindale going to Michigan. Obviously, we're gonna talk about Chip Kelly going to the Buckeyes, and then we're gonna talk about the USC defense and some pieces they're putting together for and looking at what we're gonna do when we get into the Big Ten. And we'll have the debate, the conversation about the offenses in the Big Ten that I'm notoriously getting yelled at for my stance on, and we will go from there. But on stage now is Daryl MVP making his inaugural call on a phone line. I think I've never ever heard him call in on a phone. How you doing, Daryl?
I'm doing good. How about you, Tim and Mark?
Daryl, how are you?
I'm doing great. So
Nice.
I just wanted to talk and kind of break down the Big Ten as a whole real quick, if you wouldn't mind.
Of course.
So I think paradoxically, the Big Ten this year is less competitive at the very top than last year. And I think the reason for this is Ohio State, what they did in the portal, just going bananas and just going all in. And with the key teams at the top, like Oregon losing their quarterback, with Michigan losing basically every key piece under the sun, it actually makes the Big Ten less competitive than last year. What do you think about that?
So my initial thought is I totally get your point on paper. Ohio State not only went out and got 3 of the best players in the portal, and I think their big key is going to be quarterback and offensive line. If they get those 2 positions to play for them, then look out. And even if they don't play they didn't have an offensive line and a quarterback last year, and they were sitting with the ball 30 yards away from the goal line at Michigan to win the game and go undefeated and be the number 1 seed in the playoffs. So the thing I'll say about that is maybe a bigger key than even the transfer portal for Ohio State was they got every NFL draft decision to go their way. Marvin Harrison Jr. aside, top 5 pick. Nobody's staying in school when they're a top 5 pick. But everybody else, as a first, second, third rounder, stayed. They decided to stay. And they threw them enough money, and they decided to stay. But, man, when you add Oregon and USC, I don't think Washington and UCLA are going to be factors. But when you add Oregon and USC to a lineup of Michigan, Penn State, and maybe Wisconsin could be a factor, then that's where I'm a bit hesitant. And I know that a lot of people are discounting Michigan. I am not. Where maybe Ohio State's run to the championship isn't quite as paved as smoothly as we would think. It still is a team game, and it still requires a lot of toughness and will and effort, and they have to show that.
Oh, I understand that, Mark, but let me put it this way. It would be shocking to me if Ohio State isn't at least in the Big Ten championship game. I mean, I'm not sure if you looked at the Vegas lines. They've already got some early 2024 games out. And Ohio State, the only big matchup they're currently an underdog is at Oregon. It's by 1.5, so they could easily win that game. It's just, if they go 8-1, let's say they lose to Oregon, it's hard to me to see any other team, 2 teams being 9-0. Does that make sense?
Yes. No, they're the best team on paper in the Big Ten.
And I know it's Ohio State.
They might be the best team in the country. They had one of the best defenses in the country, and they picked up one of the best defensive players in the country to add to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Caleb Down. I mean, dude was all SEC player in his freshman year, Mark. I mean, you know how incredible that is? He
Yeah,
was the
he had
best player for
107
Alabama, I would argue,
tackles.
last year.
Yeah, he had 107 tackles at safety. Yeah, he's a great player.
Yeah, you just don't find those every single day. I mean, he's got a lot. I know the hype around him is insane, but he deserves every bit of it. I mean, he is elite. And I know you said you aren't sold on Michigan taking a huge step back. I don't think they're going to take this cataclysmic step back where they go 6-6 or 7-5. But I mean, it wouldn't shock me at all, Mark, if they go 9-3 or 10-2. Would it to you?
Oh no.
Daryl, can we have you start
And if
every
they
show?
go-
If we have Daryl come on the beginning, I guarantee you, Mark, we'll get a lot more phone calls. We need to have you start off the show and do it. By the way, I was muted. I wanted to say that what a storyline that would be if you had Chip Kelly going up against Oregon, is his old team in that championship game. And I think that Chip Kelly, if I'm reading it right, I really do think I am too. There's still a great receiver room at Ohio State. But I really think that this Ohio State team is going to run the crap out of the ball. It's going to be like I really think you're going to see that happen a lot. You're going to see them just absolutely impose their will. Now, again, I don't know the offensive line, if that's going to be a limitation for Ohio State, but there's no denying the three guys you're going to have in the backfield could absolutely run the ball.
Here's the deal as you set up the chat for a response to DeReal. This is what I'll say about DeReal, and then of course DeReal will let you get back on your rant here. Thing I'll say about DeReal is he takes very strong, decisive opinions, and while I don't agree with all of them, they are always founded in logic and data. There is always substance behind them. And they might be a bit outlandish, but he takes his shot, and they're always based in fact and statistics and logic. So,
except for once upon a time, he told me that Kentucky was going to win more games than USC. That was the one time.
Was that last year?
I don't know. So long
it was
ago
close. When they go 7-6, 8-5.
It was 2 years ago.
It was 2 years
first
ago.
year of Riley.
The penalty was this year. The bet was the previous year. But yes, continue. I'm sorry.
This year would have been a lot more interesting too.
Yeah, if that's what you want to call it. It was nothing but interesting for me.
It was painful for both of us. How about that?
Right,
it was
okay,
painful
agreed.
for both of us. Very disappointing.
Agreed.
But yeah, Mark, I don't understand when I've said this call that can be super controversial. I haven't even been extreme in my takes. I haven't been trolly in my takes. I mean, if you look at Vegas again, Michigan fans have told me because of my 1% chance of them winning the national championship, you should use Vegas. Well, go to Vegas. Look at the lines. Last I checked, Michigan's an underdog against Texas. Michigan's an underdog against Ohio State. So if they think you're going to lose those two games, why can't I assume you're going to lose those two games?
This is why, DeReal, because college football fans are generally not realistic, and they're delusional, and they're biased, and that's what makes them great college football fans. They are avid. I've been on a 2-day back and forth response with a Michigan site that posted a chart that made it very clear. They posted a chart where they tried to maneuver the numbers as much as they possibly could in Michigan's favor, and they all still favored Ohio State over the last 50 years. And then I pointed out that if you took those numbers to elite criteria, it's not even close between the two schools over the last 50 years. And I still have people arguing with me. And I'm like, can you not even read and decipher numbers? It's math. So that's why there's pushback on what you're telling us.
I guess, but I mean, Mark, they should they being the Michigan fan base and your contingent, they should just be happy they won the national championship. All the stars aligned. And you know what that is, Mark? That's a Cinderella story in basketball, what we just saw on the football field. I know you don't watch basketball, Mark, but when Florida Gulf Coast made the Sweet 16, when St. Peter's made the Elite Eight, you think those teams and fan bases cared about what happened the next year? No, they were just celebrating out of the wazoo that they made the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, and that's what Michigan fans should be doing. They should be like, who cares about next year? Who cares about the year after that? They wanted this year, Mark. The Cinderella story. They should just be happy. Why can't they just be happy, Mark?
Well, okay, this is where I'm going to take their side. Number one, they're not St. Peter's or Florida Gulf Coast. They're Michigan. So that's number one. Number two would be they just won the national championship. So they just got through a 3-year period where they finally, after years and years of just getting browbeaten by Ohio State and losing and losing and losing, they get past Ohio State. They win the Big Ten. But then Georgia stomps them. And then TCU trips their way to a playoff win. And then they reach the pinnacle in winning a national championship, when I got to admit, I didn't see them winning the national championship. I didn't think it was ridiculous or out of left field, but I did not think they would win the national, and they got it done. And within 2 or 3 days, people are doubting whether they can stay this program, or even doubting and poking holes in their accomplishment. So I will stick up for them in that manner. You don't want to see your team accomplish all these great things and then have people crapping all over it.
That's America. Anyway, hey, really quickly, hold on, you guys. I don't really go into it too much. Ferris is talking about the Michigan defense and replacing Minter with Martindale, right? Do you guys think, two questions for you? Do you think that is going similar? Obviously, the schemes. Do you think that will be enough to keep all of those players there? And then, do you think that there is little or no drop off on the defensive side going from Minter to Martindale?
I guess I'll take this one first to say Wink Martindale, and DeReal's going to know more about this since I've not been an NFL guy for the last 5 or 10 years, but he had really good defenses at Baltimore. And he's the guy that was the defensive coordinator over Mike McDonald coaching the linebackers. And so he's done a great job there. I can't attest to the Giants defenses the last 2 years, but this guy's largely been considered one of the better defensive coordinators, I think, in the NFL. I think Michigan's going to be just about as strong on defense as they were last year.
Right. To me, it's not just about Wink Martindale. I think he's a good hire. I mean, you really can't take the Giants because they were just so terrible on offense with Daniel Jones as their quarterback. They had Tyrod Taylor for a bit. I mean, they were just so awful. It was kind of hard for the defense to keep going out there over and over again and consecutively get stops. But he's a great defensive coordinator. But to me, it's just so much change is happening so soon. That's going to be hard. I think there is just naturally going to be some level of drop-off in all aspects of Michigan.
I would also, the only thing I would posit is the fact that, just because you learn from somebody doesn't mean that they're your superior. Doesn't mean you can't take what you learn from somebody and turn it into something else. Also, when was last time that Wink coached in college football? How long has it been? And at what level did he coach? Yeah, I don't really know his resume. Maybe some.
No, his resumes: Oakland Raiders, Denver Broncos, to the Ravens. It's been at least since 2003. I don't know that he's ever coached. I'll double check.
I think it's been
here.
21 years.
Okay. And when he was coaching, I'm assuming he probably wasn't a DC, and it probably wasn't at a school as big as Michigan. I'm just saying, we always think that, college football translates to NFL and NFL translates to college football. And there's no doubt, what Minter and Lynn learned, in Baltimore under McDonald, and McDonald, you're saying, it learned from Martindale. It does evolve, and it does filter to a different way. I'm just saying, I'm not, if I were a Michigan fan, I wouldn't just assume that it's going to be business as usual. also, I wouldn't assume, because you also lost your defensive line coach, you lost position coaches. There is a good chance that some of these guys, they're not really, some of these guys aren't beholden to a school or even like a head coach or a coordinator. They were probably recruited by their position coach and they loved their position coach. So the good news is he went to the NFL. He didn't go to a different university, but it's not a foregone conclusion that some of these guys don't jump. Just saying.
Right. I mean, every hire in any position is always going to be a roll of the dice. I mean, just because one guy worked here doesn't mean he's going to work here. I mean, that's part of it. And to answer the question, Wink Martindale, last coach for Western Kentucky in 2003 as a defensive coordinator and inside linebackers coach. So that experience basically means nothing because of how much the game has changed over the last 21 years.
Yeah. And again, a Michigan fan, I'm not saying that it's going to drop off. I'm just saying I wouldn't just assume that it's you're going to come into a locker room and that you haven't coached college and it's not going to change in any way material. And again, I will say, because of losing position coaches, there may be some player turnover. That's all I might say.
If you just play the probabilities, their defense basically can't get better. If you just play the percentages of whether you're going to stay the same, you're going to get better, you're going to get worse. Well, they can't really statistically, they're not going to get better. They can only hope to maintain what they've done. And actually, statistically, if they're able to maintain what they did last year with USC and Texas on the schedule in place of what they faced last year, which was nobody for the first 9 weeks of the season, that would be doing something.
And this is the point. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but where was it? So I get it. The X's, I'm not talking about the X's and O's part of this whole thing or his ability to scheme or game plan or make adjustments at halftime. That's not my thing. I'm saying you also lost position coaches that you're not going to be able to fill again. And to assume that they're not going to miss a beat. And granted, it's a veteran group, but it's not like they're not. I don't know. I hope you guys are right until you play us. But other than that, I just don't think that. I don't know. It's good to be a fan, but I see a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, well look, you just bring Martindale in. He was a guy who taught McDonald. McDonald taught Minter. So boom, we're good to go." I don't think that logic really flows properly.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Tim. But, ultimately, this is just hopium or copium or whatever word you want to use with that. I mean, these are fans that have struggled for such a long time. They finally reached the top of the mountain. And according to Vegas, they should slip a little bit on the mountain. They don't want to lose their position at the top. And it's understandable, but with the new teams coming in there, they're going to lose their spot to Ohio State, I feel like, because Ohio State is a program that's built. Michigan, to me, it's just had one recruiting cycle that's been elite. Michigan needs to sustain this over a longer period of time for me to truly believe in. Is that fair to say?
Well, they lost their head coach. He's the guy that built the whole thing. Not that he should be given all the credit, because as Tim has said, the coordinators might be the most important in all of this, as certainly as the football minds, but it is Jim Harbaugh's program, and he did take it from a top 50 program. Like, they were not doing well at all. They went 5-7 before he got there, and then up the ranks, and it took him some time, but he instantly made them a 9-3 kind of program. So his impact was immediate. Then it took some time, and he had to figure out some things and get the right combination and get some help from his brother by way of Baltimore to reset the staff after 2020, and it worked.
I'll give you guys an example. This is a bad example because I'm not saying it's bad, but when you have a coordinator that comes, that's a proven coordinator in college and a proven coordinator in the pros, and then they come and they try to run that NFL system. Sometimes it's more complicated, so sometimes it takes finessing in order to get it down where you can't practice. You don't have professionals. These guys our young guys. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you guys lose a lot of players? I mean, is you guys bringing back a bunch of guys?
Yes. Tons
So
of players.
you're gonna
Well,
have.
Mark, I mean, Tim, they've told me they're going to have the most draft picks by a country mile compared to any team in the history of ever.
No, but they're gonna have a ton. And so, and what I'm saying is it's not a new system. It's gonna be the same, terminology. It's not like you're revamping everything, but there are going to be growing pains. And if that's just gonna be one loss, I'm not sure if it's. I just don't know if that's realistic. That there'd be a little more of the drop off. That's all. That's all there is. I think that Michigan's shown they can win a high level. I think that Sharon Moore has shown that he is a more than capable coach in the games he's coached, and keeping that side of the ball is solid. And I think, as everyone has said, Wink Martindale is going to be a great X's and O's guy. I'm just saying, you lose your strength coach, you lose your defensive line coach, you lose your heart and soul in Jim, and to think that it's like business as usual. I don't know. I would just say temper those expectations.
I am not somebody that says that any program is the same program as it was 25 years ago. It's a completely different program. They just wear the same jerseys and have the same locker rooms and all of that. But we might be able to learn a lesson from 1997, because there are those programs like Alabama, like Ohio State, like Georgia, that and USC under Pete Carroll and at other times in their history that have won national championships, but those national championships were surrounded by seasons in which they were competing for national championships. And Michigan did that the last 2 years prior to their national championship. I got to say that first team that lost to Georgia, they were clearly not competitive in that game.
They didn't belong, Mark.
What's that?
They didn't belong. Georgia was clearly the better team.
That's a good way to put it. They got there, they earned it, but they didn't belong. And we've seen that in the playoff over and over. We can tell, okay, who belongs, who doesn't belong. We've seen that over and over. Once they play each other, okay, they belong, they don't belong. But those elite programs have surrounded those championship seasons with other teams that were very close. And they've stayed elite for year after year after year after year. The Michigan 97 championship team, the years prior to that, they were like a top 15 team. And right after that, the Brady team was really good in 99, but pretty much the same deal. After that, they just kind of peaked one year and weren't necessarily an elite program for an extended period of time. And maybe we see the same thing here.
That's what I think is more likely to happen than not. I mean, I don't think Michigan's going to be an unranked team. I don't think they're even going to – I think they're still going to be one of the 5 best Big Ten teams going forward. It's just they're not going to be able to – I don't think they're going to be able to sustain this Ohio State. And I would like to give a little pushback to what Tim said. He said Sharon Moore is an excellent coach. Well, I know in game he is, but I don't know about practice, because that's what Jim Harbaugh was through. He did the preparation. He did all that stuff. So I contribute all that to Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, it's a much different deal. It's his baby now, and he's never been in that position before. But we've seen other guys that have been able to elevate their game. Ryan Day, Dabo Swinney, Lincoln Riley, without head coaching experience, and they've been able to pull it off. So it's been done, but he's unproven. He's replacing a guy that is proven.
Right, and not just proven, but he's one of the best coaches, period, in NFL and college combined. So, I mean, even if Sharon Moore is just a good coach, it's going to look like Michigan's taken a significant step backwards.
Yeah, if he's just a good coach, then is he as good as Luke Fickell or Jonathan Smith or Kirk Ferentz or other really good coaches, Matt Rule in the Big Ten? And that's fine. Those guys are good coaches.
Right, if he's those levels of coaching.
I think they're going to be fine. I'm just saying, just enjoy being national champions and take it slow next season. There, I'll just I'll leave it there. And look, we got a ton of weeks for you guys to tell me how I'm wrong, so that'll be fun. I look forward to it every
I'll
single
say
week.
it a little bit differently. I'll say enjoy being national champions. Don't listen to all the garbage and all the crap about how you didn't deserve it or anything else that's coming from it. I'm not saying in this conversation. I'm just saying whatever's out there from Ohio State fans and otherwise. And don't accept any less that your program's automatically going to go back down to 8-4, 9-3. But also understand that it's going to be a huge challenge to continue this. And all
it's hard.
all the points that we've made in that direction are extremely valid. Now, whether they come to fruition is another thing, but they are valid.
And it's tough being the one with a target on your back. And now, tag, you're it. You guys are the champs, and now everyone's gunning for you. So, I mean,
yes,
yeah.
Texas comes in week 2 with Quinn Ewers and a lot of talent.
All right, I got a show in 5 minutes, so I'm going to go.
Thanks, Tim.
But Daryl, that means I kick you out too. Sorry. Any last words?
No, I'm good, Tim. It's good talking to you. Am I on live or just talking to you now?
No, we're live.
Okay. Well, I see this comment from all we do is win, win, win. He's saying they're going to win back-to-back championships. So
they might. I'm not. I don't know how this is all.
Mark,
we
no,
don't
they're
know.
not, Tim. No, they're not.
Okay.
They are not winning back-to-back championships. It's not happening.
It's the spring. Anybody can win.
0%.
Oh
Yes,
man,
anybody can win anything.
Not even 1%, Daryl?
Daryl is going to double down.
No, I mean they've got the same chance as like FIU to win the national championship. Okay,
okay, come
That's
on.
what they have.
Come on.
Yeah, seriously, they just don't have the horses.
On that, me and Daryl are out. We are out because I got to go because I got a few minutes.
Thanks, Daryl. Appreciate you being here. Thanks, Tim.
All right, thank you guys.
Tim and Matt over on the USC channel. It's coming up next as soon as we get done here. They're starting at 9 p.m. Eastern time, so I will not be offended if you leave me if we continue to talk some college football because I don't know when I'm going to shut up, but it's going to be sometime fairly soon. I'm also dropping the link in the chat to our USC channel. Those guys do a remarkable job. Again, we've had some fine people like Erica, like Moose, drop the link to the merch. So check out the merch that we've got involved there. Joey Foster has done an amazing job in collecting this merch. And so give it a look and keep in mind that the shipping is free. So we have baked the shipping costs into the price. So keep that in mind because sometimes you see, oh, that's a good deal. That's a good deal online. And then you get to the shipping part and boom, $7.95, $4.95 or whatever the deal is. No, we have taken care of all the shipping costs. So grab it right there. The link is somewhere there in the chat. And I believe I'm going to have to double check that we've got that link in the description section of all the videos. I am re-energized and we're going to kick this door down here in the off season and do the best we can to deliver the best thank you so much for that, Erica. Get your merch right there. Erica has dropped the link in the chat. Thank you so much for that, Erica. That's very kind of you. But upcoming here very soon, I am going to be dropping the TV ratings for the various conferences. I dropped the video for the Big 12 TV ratings from 2023 and what that could look like going forward without Oklahoma and Texas. And we will, of course, hit the Big 10, the SEC, and the ACC. And then I'm going to dive into coaches' rankings. We will do our yearly off-season run of coaches' rankings, quarterback rankings, all the position rankings I can possibly get to here at the Voice of College Football. Keep in mind that the Michigan live show, we've got 2 special editions for you, folks. Saturday morning, 11:30 a.m. I don't know if I'm going to do that here. Yeah, we'll do it here on the main channel. We're going to do a Michigan live edition Saturday morning, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. And then also on Monday night, we're going to do another Michigan show. So Michigan fans, you should love me for all this. We're going to have 3 Michigan shows by Tuesday. Saturday morning, Monday night, and then with John D'Adamo on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time. We're going to have Zach Smith on next week at some point. We're still trying to nail down a time, and I'm not going to be able to get it started this month, but hopefully by spring practice, we're going to launch an SEC show. And of course, as our buddy Greg has mentioned a number of times, I don't see him in the chat tonight, he is awaiting the state of the Voice of College Football show. So we do a live stream every offseason where we present to you the state of the Voice of College Football. So that's for all the people invested in this channel, not necessarily for you college football fans that could care less if I disappear tomorrow. It's for you guys that are invested in the channel and what we do here at the Voice of College Football, which without you, we would just shut down the place, because without you, and I don't want to start naming people, but I'm just looking at the chat right now and I see Mozart's Ghost, Erica's here all the time, Moose is here all the time. Tice has been showing up recently, and even though Tice tells me all the time what stupid comments I make and that I don't know what I'm talking about, we do appreciate Tice being here, in Buckeyes Battle Cry, and all sorts of good people. Ferris is here. Ferris has been here all night. So it's you all, the real MVP, of course, and others. Cheryl has got to be the longest running viewer and contributor here at the Voice of College Football over anybody else. Navy Thomas, I believe, is out there. He no longer comments, but he hits me up on Twitter all the time. So I believe Navy Thomas is out there as well. So I believe between Cheryl and Navy Thomas, and then probably George, would be the three individuals that have been here at the Voice of College Football the longest. There's a function on YouTube where I'm going to do this during our State of the Voice of College Football. So of course I'm taking that from the State of the Union. That's where I'm going with that. The State of the Voice of College Football. There's a function on YouTube where I can look to see who all the subscribers are, and then I can reverse the list to see who is the last or the most tenured subscriber that is still with us. Meaning maybe our first subscriber we lost and the second subscriber we lost, but maybe the third subscriber all time is still with us, or whatever number that is. And I can look at that, and it's kind of interesting. I haven't done that in a long, long time. So again, we appreciate you being here. Come on back next, let's see, it'll be Saturday morning at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, special edition Michigan Wolverines Live. They've got so many changes on the coaching staff. Wink Martindale, still can't get used to saying that. Wink Martindale, tic-tac-toe, of course, is the new defensive coordinator for the Wolverines. And of course, a ton of other coaching staff changes that we will talk to Nelson Hubble about, Mason Blue review. And then Monday night, Tuesday night, Michigan Live as well. Head on over to the USC channel. Check out what Matt and Tim have in store and give them a ring. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. We will see you Saturday morning.